I want to welcome you to our CloudCon integration and Web API expert breakout sessions. This is the session for Darren Cunningham, Vice President for Informatica Cloud. Darren, welcome back to CloudCon.
Thanks, Vance. Great to be here.
In his post, Darren leads Informatica Cloud product and customer initiatives for enterprise IT and ISVs. He has a focus on SaaS, platform as a service, and data integration from migration, synchronization, and data replication. And what's notable here is that Darren, not only in addition to his middleware and infrastructure expertise, has held positions at Salesforce.com, Business Objects, and Lucidera, a SaaS-based provider. So he knows well the issues that go along with mediation between on-premise and the cloud. In his session this morning, Enterprise-Grade Integration across cloud and on-premise, Darren will share how improvements in cloud integration, SaaS, and iPaaS are driving a hybrid model for integrating on-premise and cloud-based data that lets companies and individual users have a clean and consistent access to that data. We'll also hear about a terrific new initiative from Informatica called Vibe, a virtual data machine that lets IT map once and deploy anywhere. Just a quick reminder, if you haven't already done so, you can download Darren's great slides by clicking the button under the viewing area. And to communicate with Darren, just simply type into the submit a question box. And now, Darren, over to you.
Thanks, Vance. It's great to be here as always. So as you mentioned, today I'm going to be taking you through Informatica's thoughts on cloud integration, and I'm also going to be introducing you to our virtual data machine, as well as bringing it all together with some next steps for you all and how you can think about really delivering and implementing an integration competency center in your organization. So that's our agenda for today's presentation. Let's dive in. So we're living in a time of unprecedented technology change and disruption. I'm sure I don't have to tell you all on today's call, but impacts of mobility, cloud computing, the Internet of Things, these are all terms we're throwing around. I hear some people referring to this as the smack stack of social, mobile, analytics, and cloud. But the bottom line is these technologies have the potential to deliver incredible business opportunities. And as you can see on this slide here, McKinsey recently published a study estimating that the business impact of some of these new and emerging technologies over the next 12 years, really up until 2025, is significant. So just the top 5 is estimated to generate between 13 and 30 trillion in economic impact by 2025. So the impact of these technologies is definitely going to be transforming our lives, our businesses, and certainly the global economy. And of course, what we're seeing is not new. We've seen this movie before as wave after wave of technology introductions have come at us over the last 50 years. Each wave has really brought its own set of opportunities to deliver on bigger and better business outcomes. And just has been clear over the past 10 or 15 years, the pace is increasing. I mean, just consider that Facebook, Twitter, iPhones, none of these were around just a mere decade ago. The other things that have been very clear to us at Informatica and those of us in the industry for some time is that the previous wave is not just about new technologies that IT needs to deal with. It's about how to manage these disruptions and ensure that you have a course of continuity so you're able to manage change as these technologies continue to evolve. So pretty much every technology on this slide is still around in your data center. Mainframes, SAP, ERP, Oracle databases, plus we have to bring in new technologies such as Hadoop, virtualization, cloud services. So it's just a continuation of innovation, and it's really unleashing a lot of potential right now on the business, as well as a potential impact on the IT organization that has to really keep up the pace and be able to adjust and adapt, in many cases in real time. So this is the world we've come to grips with today and tomorrow. On the one side, we have the promise of incredible business potential, solving the world's toughest diseases through personalized genome sequencing, or creating market segments of one as we increase our capability to uniquely match a customer's needs and buying patterns with our products. It's just amazing the amount of information that we're all dealing with and the potential that this information can unleash on us, on individuals, on the applications we rely on interactions with our customers, and on and on and on. But all of this comes at a price for IT. IT cannot simply absorb these new technologies at the pace of their introduction. There's a completely new learning curve and adoption curve for the IT organization to understand how to program and harness these. And the complexity drives cost. It increases risk across the board, whether you're building new apps or just trying to analyze new sets of data. So what we see at Informatica is IT really needs to find a way to harness change and be able to move between these new platforms as they continue to evolve in the enterprise. You need to be able to adapt quickly and cope in the face of this rapidly accelerating change. So this is really what's driving what we're doing at Informatica and what we're calling Vibe, which is our virtual data machine. A VDM, or virtual data machine, it's an embeddable data management engine that separates the data integration instructions and specifications, which map out the business logic for handling data, from the underlying execution technology. It can deploy your logic regardless of type, volume, or source of data, computing platform, or end user. More importantly, if any of those things change, the VDM lets you redeploy without recoding, redevelopment, or respecification. It can be embedded into your applications, into your middleware infrastructure and devices, wherever you need to access, aggregate, and manage data. The VDM is the only way to ensure that you can take advantage of the latest new technology and really take advantage of the latest data as quickly as possible. At Informatica, we're starting to see this as really the best way to keep up with the pace of change and the range of complexity that can completely overwhelm you in the IT organization. Right now, many of you are often relying on hand coding or point-to-point tools that might be tied to a single data type or application or computing platform. A VDM is the only way to harness data in every application, every process, for every person, and in every device around the globe. So that's really a huge initiative for us that we're taking on in Informatica, and we call it Vibe. And a key benefit of Vibe is this ability to map once and deploy anywhere. We see Vibe as the industry's first and only embeddable virtual data machine to access, aggregate, and manage data, regardless of type, source, volume, compute platform, or user. So some of the business benefits, we're seeing customers who are able to accelerate and in a 5 times faster turnaround from business idea to solution. So really accelerating that interoperability, that handshake between the line of business and the IT organization. Some of our customers, because of the underlying Vibe platform, are able to adapt the technology much more quickly to the business versus the other way around. And ultimately, the business benefit is that organizations can utilize all of the data regardless of location, type, or volume. On the IT side, some of the benefits our customers are telling us about thanks to Vibe and this ability to map once and deploy anywhere is similar in terms of project time, accelerating project delivery, eliminating the skills gap for adopting new technologies and approaches, and then ultimately reducing the cost of maintaining complex assortments of technologies. So this is what we're calling Vibe, and it's really powering the Informatica platform. So the virtual data machine is not sufficient by itself, however, to solve the wide spectrum of data integration challenges and data management challenges our customers face. So Vibe lets you master the complexity and change, and it makes all data accessible, but in many places where data lives, especially some of the emerging data sources, the data is unfiltered, it's unstandardized, it's uncleansed, it's unrelated. So some of it's even unnecessary. It takes a considerable amount of work and expertise to understand how to transform raw data into information that provides insight and value. So in addition to the enabling capabilities that Vibe delivers, you also need to layer on the data services and information solutions from a fully integrated information platform. And that's really what Informatica has been driving and delivering to our customers for years, bringing it all together now as really being powered by this concept and this virtual data machine called Vibe. So let me give you an example of this in action, and it's going to actually lead us into the next topic I want to cover, which is around this notion of hybrid IT. But we're seeing Vibe really giving our customers flexibility to deploy once and run anywhere, whether it's on-premise or in the cloud. So Actelion is a Swiss biopharmaceutical company that focuses on finding treatments for diseases without any known treatments. They're a relatively young company founded in 1997, and therefore they have an IT infrastructure that has a pretty heavy reliance on cloud applications for their core business apps, such as sales and patient CRM. Of course, they have on-premise business apps too, but in particular, those are being used for information management, such as master data management, data warehousing, analytics, and compliance. So Actelion really needed to be able to make sure all their apps are able to share data across the hybrid IT environment that they've found themselves in, mixing cloud with on-premise. And to solve this hybrid use case, they use a hybrid Informatica solution. They use Informatica Cloud to do a basic cloud application integration, such as continuously replicating time-sensitive data from its cloud-based Viva SFA system to its on-premise data warehouse. However, for more complex mappings, when they're required, Actelion uses PowerCenter, which is our on-premise solution, to develop the mappings and be able to share those easily with the users in the cloud. So that was really a key example of Vibe in action, this reusable concept, map once, run anywhere. So the next part of what I want to take you through, now that you get a sense of what Vibe is all about and really the power of the virtual data machine that we're focusing on increasingly at Informatica, I wanted to switch gears and talk a little bit about this shift to cloud-based integration services, and then bring it all together with some of the concepts around reuse and really best practices that you can take advantage of and consider in the enterprise. So if we look at SaaS application adoption in the enterprise, it's no secret that spending, according to IDC and others, is growing by over 100% in the enterprise. This is not a new topic, whether it's lower costs, whether it's faster time to deploy, the benefits of regional deployment, or OpEx versus CapEx. There's a number of benefits that organizations are seeing as they move to SaaS-based solutions. In fact, many IT organizations today are questioning when there is a potential on-premise application to consider, they're actually asking, why not cloud? For years it was, why cloud? And now it's definitely shifted to, why wouldn't that be a cloud-based solution, as opposed to always considering on-premise first? But some of the impediments in terms of uptake are also fairly well known. And we're actually happy to see, I think it's reflecting a maturity of this category, that integration is so top of mind. It is such a hot topic as it relates to all aspects of cloud computing, whether it's SaaS, PaaS, or infrastructure as a service. So there's always been the topic of security in the cloud. That topic's not going to go away. I think the topic's moved from more of an obstacle to a question for most IT organizations. Now we're seeing a lot of questions about the sovereignty of data, and then as you see here in this chart, the potential lack of integration between these new applications and platforms. The other thing that I think that's interesting to talk about as it relates to cloud adoption in the enterprise is what Nicholas Carr once referred to, or does refer to in his book, the big switch. It's here. This is upon us. And one of the big switches that is happening, as some of these headlines indicate, is that cloud decisions are no longer in the IT department's hands exclusively. And like, it's a little bit of a scary headline, but the suits have taken over. We're seeing a lot now as more and more of these vendors are making acquisitions in the marketing space about why your CMO may spend more money on the cloud than your CIO. I'm not sure if that's the case in my organization, but I'm working on it. But this is definitely some of the shift that we're seeing. And the bottom one, the 2013 Future of Cloud Computing Survey reveals that the business is driving cloud adoption. And we're seeing this new acronym. It's become moving from bring your own device to bring your own cloud. And this is a scary concept for a lot of IT organizations, but it's also an opportunity to really adapt and adopt to this new paradigm. The other part that I think is really driving a lot of this change is this need for speed that the business then requires. And this quote came from one of Informatica's customers who said, look, with our CRM solution, with Salesforce.com, you can add a field in a minute. On the other hand, if you can't get anything to put into that field for 6 months while you're waiting to go through your IT process, how does this really help you? If you can't respond to the data with the same amount of agility, it's essentially useless. And that is where we are on the integration space. If the business has to be told that it's going to take 6 weeks just to get back to them, or even worse, it's going to take just that amount of time to change an existing mapping, integrating data between a couple of systems, they're going to go and find another solution. And then we end up back in the situation of shadow IT, which I'm sure many of you on the call have faced in various ways in your career. So we're talking increasingly about this concept of hybrid IT, and we're not the only ones at Informatica. Gartner, Forrester, you see some of the research that they're coming out with on this topic of hybrid computing and the hybrid integration challenge. And this quote from Gartner, I think, is impactful. IT organizations that do not match the request for IT as a service run the risk of internal customers bypassing the IT organization and consuming IT services from the external cloud, thereby placing the company at greater risk. So how do you balance this need for speed, this need for agility, with the need for strong governance and control? That is really the heart of the challenge and the heart of the real conversation as it relates to hybrid IT. So a few of the challenges that we've seen at Informatica as it relates to integration and data management in the cloud. So one is the obvious, which is the potential for disconnected SaaS silos, right? It's not just a matter of a lot of the new applications that are in the cloud not being connected with the existing applications or connected to one another, we see situations where organizations end up with multiple instances of the same app that don't speak to one another. So we see a lot of organizations that, for example, end up with 20, 30, 40 instances of Salesforce. So it's not just about connecting your cloud apps to your on-premise systems. It's making sure that all of these systems are really unified and delivering the business value that's expected. And then the next is, how do you get a single view of your customers? Many of the cloud apps are more front office in nature, so giving that single view is important to the users of those applications. And then finally, on the process side, this is often forgotten when we start talking about integration, especially as it relates to data. But at the end of the day, your users who are consuming these applications need to know what to do and how to do it. So you can spend a lot of time making sure you've got really well integrated applications and really clean data in those systems. But if your users can't easily navigate the apps themselves, they could actually disrupt all that hard work very, very quickly with a few clicks. So we're spending a lot of time at Informatica increasingly talking about process integration and the benefits of tying it all together from an end user consumer perspective. So I want to briefly introduce you to our approach to cloud integration, and it does tie back to Vibe and the virtual data machine concept. So what we've been working on over the last few years is delivering a true software as a service based approach to data integration, or really application integration, if you will, the ability to design, execute, monitor, administer your work in the cloud, and then be able to take advantage of broad connectivity to sources and targets, whether they're cloud-based or on-premise. So you can learn more about that at informaticacloud.com. And a key element to understand in our approach is that you can do what you need to do on the web. You literally can get started with a couple of clicks in a trial. Then, powered by Vibe, our virtual data machine, this concept of an agent is really what's doing the heavy lifting. So this is what then moves the data to and from your source and your target. So get it going up on the cloud, you get provisioned a tenant in our multi-tenant repository, and then associate the Vibe virtual data machine to that instance, and then be able to move data between sources and targets. So we don't stage your data in the cloud, data transmission is secure, and then ultimately you benefit from all of the security certifications that we are constantly ensuring we're in compliance with to deliver you that timely, trusted, and relevant information across systems. So as I mentioned, Informatica Cloud is very much powered by Vibe, the virtual data machine. And the key benefit, as you heard me mention at Actelion, is you can literally map once and deploy anywhere. So what that means at a little more granular level is that if you're out there and are familiar with PowerCenter, if you're anyone who's used Informatica or is using it today, you can benefit from the reuse. You can build mappings in PowerCenter, you can import them and run them in the cloud, and vice versa. So there is this benefit of interoperability and this idea of being able to give self-service out to certain groups and then be able to centrally manage it from the administration perspective. So the last thing I wanted to introduce you to is this idea of it may not be new in your organization, you may be already there and just looking for some next steps. We spend a lot of time with our customers talking about not only next generation data integration, but tying it together with a competency center or a center of excellence approach. So how do we go from this sort of chutes and ladders approach where you've got point-to-point code happening across your business, connecting these different systems, to more of an automated, really next-generation approach to data integration? So at a high level, we're seeing organizations who are trying to move from this very specialized, the manufacturing world where you have a skilled developer doing all this manual work, to much more of an automated process. So in the integration world, you have these people doing hand coding, and you want to be able to go to more of a finished product. In this case is this really nice looking, really old horse and buggy, but that's not really going to scale. So we've seen in the integration world moving more to this assembly line approach, where you've gone from a dedicated skilled labor with standard tools to much more of a mass production. Dedicated skilled labor still exists, but you're really trying to benefit from reuse and not reinventing the wheel each time. So We've recently authored a book on the concept of lean integration, which is really kind of the next generation of competency center. So how do we go from this flow of materials model to a flow of information? How do you go from this just-in-time world of automation and workflow, mass customization, to more of a template-driven self-service approach to integration that is agile and iterative and delivers configurable, reusable objects? So this is a concept I'll leave you with. We won't spend too much time drilling down, but I do think in the consumer world, it's a little bit like the Domino's tracker, where you've ordered your custom pizza, you can see where it's going, how it's doing in the process, and where it is in the cycle. Why can't we go to this kind of model with integration? And we're actually trying to move in this direction, and it really is thanks to the Vibe virtual data machine. So with Informatica Cloud, we have this concept of integration templates. You can get going with a cloud and integration trial, and you can actually go and look for some of these within the trial environment, or you can go to our marketplace and search for a number of these prepackaged integration templates that we've built or our customers and partners have made available on our marketplace. You can then make sure that these are configurable, so it's not hardwired. They're really customizable so that it can be reused and reconfigured to your specific requirements, whether that's sources or targets or some of the parameters in the middle, and ultimately be able to deliver out a custom interface to your users that allows them to walk through a process, take advantage of some of that parameterization, and then automate the scheduling. So a concept to think about that is heavily tied to this notion of ICC, or Integration Competency Center, and moving really from a custom approach to a much more lean integration model. So some of the ways to think about this, and we've seen customers move down this path, where they define very specific objectives. So they're going to measure this shift to an ICC-based model for hybrid IT, set up a dedicated project manager, formally define a stewardship type of role or function, define and establish clarity around your cloud development lifecycle and the roles that are going to be part of that lifecycle, put an emphasis on change management into your communication plan. It's critical. Develop this capability of reuse. Again, back to the Vibe concept of map once, deploy anywhere. Implement a metadata management office. Identify specific project-specific use cases and how you can leverage the cloud platform. And then consider some of the different professional services options. And we do have a velocity methodology at Informatica, but many of our partners have something similar. So that was a fair amount of information to cover in a brief session. So we really thought it was important for you all to understand a bit more about Vibe and where we're going from the underlying engine or virtual data machine from Informatica. We do want to introduce Informatica Cloud and really give you some ideas around how that will help you with your overall cloud integration strategy for hybrid IT, and then introduce some concepts that you can take back around in general for enterprise integration consideration. And we do have a couple of authors, David Lyle and John Schmidt. They've published 2 books, one on an ICC and one on lean integration. So that concludes my formal presentation. I'll hand it back to you, Vance, for some Q&A.
Excellent, excellent. Darren, a very wide-ranging presentation, great look at the state of cloud integration and hybrid IT, along with some best practices, and really interesting look at under-the-covers technology going into Vibe, your virtual data machine. Really terrific session.
Great, thanks, Vance.
So with so many dimensions, as you might expect, we've got kind of questions that go into all of those directions, so let's head right into them. The first one, Darren, I think talks to one of the pain points we've heard all morning from folks about IT dealing with SaaS adoption and consumerization of IT within the enterprise. And let's just throw this out and see what your take is. The question here says, we're always chasing SaaS sprawl, not just new applications, but SaaS updates, which seem to come out 3 or 4 times a year. How can Informatica help me keep up with both types of SaaS sprawl?
Interesting. I think your question does illustrate the next level of maturity that's expected of vendors in this market. So SaaS sprawl has been well documented. These applications coming into the business, it might be through a credit card purchasing outside of IT. We talked about shadow IT. The next challenge then is once you've actually figured out a real strategy, as we've talked about today, really got a more methodical approach to SaaS application integration, is then how do you set your IT organization up to be able to manage the pace of innovation that typically comes with the SaaS approach? Now, it doesn't always happen, by the way, but if your vendor is truly multi-tenant, all of your customers, therefore, are on the same release, the same version of the software, it means that that vendor is able to come out with new features at a much faster pace. Now, what we've seen vendors do is recognizing that the IT organization or the end users might not be ready for that pace, is in most cases, vendors do deliver new functionality that is not turned on, and they allow for the administrator of that system to enable it when they're ready. So the vendor is still able to move quickly and innovate fast, not having to worry about a lot of old releases to support on different platforms, but they're also now working more closely with the customers, giving them better approaches, whether from an upgrade time frame and all the visibility you need into the upgrade cycle, or to the actual administrative control of turning on and off certain functionality when ready.
You know, it's such an interesting topic because there's a question here, Darren, I think that even follows up on this chat just a bit. And it talks about the idea of self-service, the whole concept value add where SaaS or cloud services should be self-service for the business user. And here the question says, does Informatica offer any special features that will help IT keep up with business needs to make integration a self-service feature?
Yeah, so self-service is a loaded term. It's what everybody wants to talk about as it relates to the cloud, but it often scares IT greatly. So we actually talk much more about the concept of governed self-service to soften it to a certain extent for the traditional IT audience. And what we found over the last 5-6 years as we've been introducing continued innovation through our software as a service data integration solution is when we go and show some of the ease of use functionality and we show how we've simplified the end user experience and that it's all based on the same underlying technology, the first question is, great, you're allowing these users to do some things, and it's all Informatica, so I can leverage my maplets and all of the work that I've done, but how do I ensure that they don't touch things that they're not supposed to? How do I ensure that they don't get into trouble? And so what we focus on delivering is, we call it delegated administration, which really allows you from a central deployment have one master org or instance of Informatica Cloud, and then to be able to provision out sub-orgs. So you can centrally manage all of the access rights controls, who can access what, when, how, where, etc. And then you can deploy them their own sub-org that is fairly locked down, and you can turn on things as they show that they can manage it. But that's really been a shift for us, and it really represents this sort of shift to more inside-out kinds of functionality. Again, for the first few years of Informatica Cloud, we were delivering features for more of the outside-in deployment, where the lines of business were running with SaaS apps and didn't want to work with a centralized IT group. In the last 2 years, especially in the last 12 months, we've focused much more on the inside-out deployment options that do deliver that administration and control that IT needs.
You know, good point. In fact, speaking of that kind of hybrid technology, the Vibe seems to be technology that encourages end-to-end thinking, both from Informatica Cloud and the Power Center. A couple of questions here. So Darren, just to level set, the first question is Informatica Vibe a product, or is it an enabling technology that lies within Informatica Cloud and Power Center?
Yes, so Vibe is an enabling technology. It's not a product you can go and buy on its own. One of the diagrams I showed really illustrates how Vibe is the underlying virtual data machine that really is powering our market-leading data integration technologies, data quality, information lifecycle. Those are at the data services level. And then it's also powering a lot of our information services. So we have B2B data exchange technology, multi-domain master data management, and increasingly will power third-party solutions. So some of our products are, I would say, heavier powered by Vibe today, so certainly Power Center and our data quality solutions, as well as our cloud-based offerings. Others are a little less Vibe-oriented at this point, but increasingly they will all be 100% powered by Vibe, and Vibe will be something that can be easily embedded into third-party solutions.
Okay, so that gets the conversation started. Here's another question about Vibe. Does Vibe perform functions for both the design time, including mapping, and runtime operation?
Yeah, that's really the key, is this separation of design and run. So you're going to see different design time environments from Informatica, all really connecting to the runtime. And that's been something that Informatica did from early days, was separating those two layers, which has allowed us to deliver easier to use, lighter weight types of capabilities, but all, again, benefiting from this ability to map once and deploy anywhere. So that separation of the logic and the layers is really a key element to Vibe.
So just to take kind of a big picture moderator question here, Darren, is the principle here that by exposing both the ISV community and the enterprise IT community to some of the underlying infrastructure magic of Informatica with this virtual data machine, that you hope that people will feel more confident and aggressive about some of their cloud adoption, knowing that it's not just magic or it's not just a list of connectors that may or may not get out of date, that you've got a real fundamental infrastructure component or engine that is driving cloud integration? Is that one of the pictures behind Vibe?
Yeah, it's definitely the case for cloud integration, but it's much bigger than that. Let's take big data, for example. With all these new technologies, whether it's Hadoop, MapReduce, Pig, Jive, there's so much big data back to that sort of spectrum of change in the enterprise and in technology we're seeing. Wouldn't it be great if you could take advantage of all these new technologies and not have to go and learn them all from scratch? If you could reuse and really leverage your existing tool set, but also make sure you're modernizing your overall information infrastructure. So that is really the key with Vibe, is that whether it's all the new cloud applications that are coming along, whether it's mobile, social, all the big data technologies, over time we're seeing increasingly this conversation of the Internet of Things. Wouldn't it be great if you could really stay with one information platform and really that's powered by the same underlying virtual data machine and make sure that you're not losing step? You're innovating, but you're able to leverage as much as possible as you move your technology and really modernize your overall infrastructure.
Excellent, excellent. You know, Darren, this session has just flown by. I see we're out of time here, but before you go, the beauty of having a cloud integration option that is, in fact, in the cloud is that it makes it easy or frictionless for people to do trials or proof of concepts. Can you share how people can check out what Informatica Cloud has and learn a little bit more about Vibe?
Sure. So a couple of resources. First and foremost, if you're more of a hands-on audience, which I know a lot of your audience is, Vance, is just go over to informaticacloud.com and sign up. And you'll be amazed at what you can do very, very quickly. And we have a 30-day trial that's all very self-service. The second thing, if you're more interested in this concept of Vibe and the virtual data machine and what it all means for Informatica, you can visit informatica.com/vibe. There's a few white papers, really kind of tying it together with our 20-year heritage and history as a data integration leader. And then we have a couple of white papers on hybrid IT and the whole concept of ICC. Last but not least, I have to give a plug for my friends and colleagues, David Lyle and John Schmidt. If you really want to dive into some of these concepts of ICC and Lean, you can go to Amazon and actually get their books. They're pretty smart guys with a good summer read for you all.
Great conclusion. Darren Cunningham, Vice President, Informatica Cloud. Thanks again for a look at the rapid pace of great enabling technology for hybrid IT, and especially for taking so many questions. Really enjoyed it.
All right. Thank you, Vance. Always a pleasure.
I know you gave us a great list of resources. We're going to leave a slide up here that will take them directly to many of the things that you mentioned, both PDFs as well as the sign up for the trial. And I believe we even got some material that's directly here in the breakout room that Darren and his team have graciously supplied us, so you can get some of these resources right here, right today. Thanks again, everyone.